Hello everyone, Tree by Dave here, and welcome to part 2 of my XP video series. I know it's been a while, but I'm back to share some more information about how the XP system works and how to make the most of your time in Overwatch in order to maximize the amount of XP you're getting for the time invested. Now, last time we went over best XP practices, which included grouping up, endorsing people, not leaving games, getting the consecutive match bonus as a result, and some other general practices in order to make the most of the time you have to get those juicy loot boxes, right? Because that's what it's all about. Or maybe you want the borders, but those are going away soon. So make the most of the time you have remaining while you still can. We also went through the best modes for getting XP in, including quick play, mystery heroes, and 3v3 elimination, as well as touching on which modes are not so good, like competitive, free-for-all deathmatch, and play versus AI. And we will be going through some of those modes today, because today's video is about queue times and how impactful they are on your general XP per hour and your best practices when bearing queue time in mind. Now, last time we did go over the important thing we learnt about analysing the XP system, which was shorter games are better for XP per hour, not longer games. While that's true, when you're assuming a queue time of 0 seconds, which is what we did last time, queue times generally are not 0 seconds. Now, hopefully, you get no queues at all. In the old quick play system, it worked like that. If you stayed in the game, you'd often get straight back into another game with no queue time at all, which was brilliant, right? No waiting, just more games, which is generally what we want. With the new quick play system, it never works like that. You go straight back to menu and queue again. So if you like the quick play format, quick play classic is definitely better. No doubt about it, right? Because in general, queue time is not good for XP. That's pretty clear, right? You're never going to get any XP for queuing. Doesn't happen. So in general, you always want to minimize queue time. That's what I'm getting at, right? Minimize queue time as much as you can. But you can't always minimize queue time. Sometimes the queue just goes and goes and goes, and you're just sitting there waiting. Maybe you're playing a bit of practice range while you wait. Maybe you're doing a bit of queue time deathmatch. Doesn't make any difference, right? You'd never get XP for those either. I was hoping when the system came out, we'd get XP for queue time activities, but no luck there, unfortunately. So, queue time is just generally bad. But that's not where it ends, right? You'd think, oh, what is there to queue time? Queue time bad, play good. Yeah, pretty simple. Maybe. It would be that simple if longer games were always better. But as we discovered last time, that's not the case. So let's have a look. Let's find out which modes are good and which modes are bad for shorter queue times and longer queue times, and where short matches are better and where long matches are better. The only way of finding that out is by actually having a look. So let's dive in and have a look. So we'll start with quick play. And quick play is generally a mode which a lot of people play. Both quick play and quick play classic. We'll keep them the same because they are essentially the same in the bonuses they give out, the XP they give out. They're the same, right? So don't worry too much about what if is there any differences? Essentially, no. The only real difference is the queue times, right? So now if we look at the chart, I've color coded it for green is the highest amount of XP. So a solid green is over a level per hour, which is definitely worth having. I'm sure you'd agree. A level per hour, very nice. Now, it's not something you generally expect to earn, because queue times can get pretty high, depending on what you're doing. And with queuing as damage, definitely on the high side, right? So as you can see, with the match time on the left, going up and down, and the queue time going left and right, with the shortest match time, so a 30-second match, the queue times have a massive impact on XP per hour, as you can see. It's a very quick gradient into trash, right? Trash XP per hour. But as you can see here, we've not got a clear linear gradient. You may have noticed that we've got a bit of a pyramid shape, where you've got a corner of very nice XP numbers, and then the rest sort of tails off into red, with red being on the upper right, where the queue times are the highest and the match times are the lowest, right? So what does this mean? Well, for the left side, the shorter the match time, so in this top left corner, you've got short matches and short queues. So if you had an hour of 30-second matches, you'd earn 22,900 XP. So over a level an hour. I don't think anyone has done that before. Having a whole hour of 30-second matches would be nice, but it's never going to happen. But in theory, that would be very good for XP, as you can see. So in terms of no queue time, you can see visually this time that shorter matches are definitely better, because as you go down, the XP gets worse. Now, that does change. That doesn't extend all the way through, as you can see, because over on the right, it starts bad and gets better as match time increases. And so you can see the break-even point, the point where longer matches are better for XP, looks to be about the 80-second mark, right? Around about where this green is, this sort of pea green. Because after that, you get more XP as you go down. Now, it's sort of between 80 and 100 seconds, maybe about a minute and a half, is generally the queue time that you want to stay under if you like doing shorter matches, right? If you like doing a lot of short matches, try to keep under 90 seconds of queue time in quick play. So that's what this chart is showing. Now, this is a big difference to competitive, because as we said before, competitive is one of the only modes that's not better to do shorter games on. And that's much more evident when we actually have a look at the chart. As you can see here, this looks more like the gradient you'd expect. So you've got the green in the bottom left, you've got the red in the bottom right, and that's pretty much it, right? So longer matches are always better in competitive, always. No exceptions there. For play versus AI, just don't bother. If you want to play for XP, it's just bad. As you can see here, there isn't any green on here. It's all just shades of yellow and red. It's just rubbish. The values don't go above 14,000. They never even get there. So don't worry about that mode. Forget it exists. I'm sure many of you have already. 3v3, however, is a very different story. 3v3 is a lot of green. 3v3 is very good. As we touched on last time, it's a very good mode for XP. Now, what's more evident on here as quick play is shorter matches are definitely better for 3v3. As you can see, it's very, very good all the way along. Now, it does hit a point where longer matches are better, at around the 2-minute mark. So in terms of the best mode for shorter matches, for best XP efficiency, 3v3 is probably the cream of the crop, as it were, right? For XP efficiency, because you can get short matches out of it. It benefits a lot from shorter matches, and you can just keep going as long as you like. The downside with 3v3, and its cousin 6v6 is that they're not around much in the arcade menu. That's probably the worst thing about those modes. Sometimes you just can't play them, and that's just sad, because they are pretty great for XP. Maybe in the future we'll have more selection in the arcade modes that we play, but for the moment, if it's up, it's worth doing. There's a lot of green on this one, so yeah, go for that if you can find it. Otherwise, Mystery Heroes is still a good choice. It's got a bit of a corner of green, as we've seen before on Quick Play, so it does benefit from shorter matches below a certain queue time. And with Mystery Heroes, shorter queue times are generally the norm. You tend to not get massively long queue times in my experience, so it's definitely a mode worth considering if you like those shorter games and you don't really worry too much about getting longer games, because it's still pretty good when longer games are concerned. You're still getting a fair amount of XP from that. There's also PvE to consider. Now, PvE is a special one. PvE, in terms of Junkenstein's Revenge and the Archives missions, there is something extra in these modes, and that is XP penalty. Now, XP penalty in PvE consists of a reduction of XP if the games are too short, which is something that doesn't really apply to most of the other game modes out there. Now, they do still have penalties for shorter games, but they're so short it's hard to ever hit the penalties. In Quick Play, I think there is a penalty under 30 seconds somewhere, or maybe it's under a minute, I'm not sure. It's so rare to get game modes that short, I just never hit them. But for PvE, it's extremely easy to hit those XP penalties, because if you're playing on the harder game modes, for example, your entire team can get wiped out in a matter of seconds just after the game starts, right? If you're bad. Or even if you just make a few mistakes and the game lasts maybe 60 seconds and you're dead. And then you see the XP screen and there's nothing there, right? It's like, oh, really? And then you have to wait, queue again and start again and hope for the best the next time. But PvE is still pretty good for XP. As you can see, it's got that nice green corner, so it does benefit from shorter matches if no queue time exists. The good thing about that is with PvE, you generally don't get a lot of queue time because you're not searching for any opponents. The opponents are the computer. So generally you'll get queue times below a minute because it just has to find a server to plonk you on for the duration of the match. So we're looking at 0, 20, 40 seconds most, right? So generally PvE is very good for XP, as you can see. Very, very good XP all the way down. Although shorter matches are better, so if you can blitz through a PvE mission super quick, you're going to make more XP out of it. So if you get a good team together and just mince the lowest difficulty over and over, that will definitely be pretty good for XP. The problem is with PvE, a lot of the time, the match time is fairly fixed. There's not a huge amount you can do to reduce it. Even with the Archives missions, they are paced at a fairly deliberate pace. But there are some time saves you can make on the Archives missions. The Junkenstein ones are very, very, very strict in terms of the time you have to invest in them, because they're deliberately spaced out. It's not based on how fast you can kill things. So I'd say if you've got the choice and you've got those PvE missions available, go for the Archives ones and just blitz them with a good team on a low difficulty, and you should make some very good XP from that, because they do benefit from shorter games all the way through, because queue times are pretty irrelevant with PvE. So it's an excellent game mode for XP overall, but very limited availability. So it looks like the best modes for XP are generally locked away behind rarity of some kind, either time locked due to seasonal events, or just locked behind random luck of the draw in terms of what turns up in the arcade menu. So 3v3 and PvE, very, very good, but limited in terms of availability. So out of the ones we've looked at, Quick Play and Mystery Heroes are the best. For that, shorter is better. And in terms of the limited ones, 3v3 still remains very, very good. And PvE is a solid choice. So it's rather interesting. We can go quickly through the exact queue times you should be looking to expect in terms of what strategy to employ when you actually get into the game. So for quick play, as we said, it's about 1.5 minutes. So queue times longer than 1.5 minutes, you should be aiming for longer games. Queue times less than 1.5 minutes, you should be aiming for shorter games. For 3v3, there aren't very long queues for that, but generally you're looking at about 2-minute queue times for that. So you're probably always going to want shorter games for that one, because longer than 2-minute queue times for 3v3 is a rarity, although I haven't played that game in a long while, so your mileage may vary. For Mystery Heroes, you're looking at about 2 minutes again, so queue times longer than 2 minutes, try to go for longer games, other than that, shorter. And for PvE, it's not really important because you don't tend to get queue times for those. I hope that's been useful. It was certainly quite interesting to have a look and see all these values represented in a visual way. It certainly helps solidify the importance of queue times and how much difference they actually make in terms of XP per hour. Thanks for watching. I hope you learned something. If you did, if you'd like to give me some feedback, feel free to leave it in the comments. I appreciate you being here, of course. Good luck with all your XP grinding. Hope you get some good loot in those loot boxes you're earning from the levels. And if you want to check my Twitch out, the link's up there. Twitch.tv/TrueBoyDave. I stream 6 days a week, 2 p.m. till 8 p.m. British time. Fridays off. My Twitter and my YouTube are up there too, although you don't necessarily need my YouTube, right? Because you can just click my name below the video if you want to see any more of my videos. I'll also leave the link to the first part in the description if you haven't seen that yet, although you probably have. If you've searched for this guide, you've probably found that one as well. So if you haven't, though, it's definitely worth a watch. There's some really good tips in there to make sure to maximize your XP. It's a little bit old at this point, before Quick Play and Quick Play Classic diverged, but it's definitely still worth a watch because you'll get some good information out of that one. Anyway, thanks for watching. I wish you all the best, and I'll see you all soon.